Did you have a seemingly normal childhood and then end up with complex trauma and other mental health issues? That's what happened to me. Today I'm going to share my story. I think my story is a common story. It might be your story too. And after I'm done sharing my story, I'm going to tell you the different mental health care issues that I ended up with as a result. And then I'm going to tell you what I've done to start healing from all of them. Hi, I'm Kristen, and welcome to my channel. I have mostly healed from my past traumas, and I want to share what I've learned with you so that you can heal too. It is possible to suffer less and lead a more happy and joyful life. I didn't realize that my childhood and my early adulthood wasn't great until I was about 45. I had just recently left my ex-husband, and fortunately I had a good friend of mine that sat me down one weekend and said, I really want to just help you see that your childhood wasn't so great. At the time, after leaving my husband, I think I started to show signs of some, mental illness, of anxiety and depression, and was kind of uncertain about why and where it came from. And looking at my past from a different perspective was really necessary to help me learn what had happened to me and to understand it and to see it clearly and to grieve the fact that it all happened and to heal from it. So I am the youngest of 3 children. I have 2 older brothers. One of my brothers is about 5 years older and the other one is about 1.5 years older. And I was born into a family. The 2 older brothers, I had a mom and a dad. And my dad was an alcoholic. And my dad drank pretty much every night. And pretty much every night got kind of mean. My dad mostly picked on my brothers and didn't pick on me so much. I was the baby of the family. But I watched my dad be mean to my brothers, verbally abusive, but also occasionally physically abusive. And my dad was just a very unstable, angry person. And that was pretty scary to grow up around. It's very scary to grow up around an unstable father. My oldest brother was 5 years older than me and bore the most of the brunt of the abuse from my dad. And because of this, he acted out a lot and would cause fights and cause a lot of conflict in the family. He also became very manipulative over me. And so I actually ended up suffering more emotional abuse from my brother as a result of the abuse that he got from my dad. My other brother, who was about 1.5 years older than me, also was, suffered some emotional abuse from my father. And my brother also had a pretty severe stuttering problem. And I believe that resulted from all of the stress that we had in our household as a child. And because of that, he needed a lot of intensive therapy to heal from his stuttering disorder. My parents divorced when I was about 7, and my brothers, both of my brothers and my mom and I moved away at opposite ends of the state. And so from that on, my mom raised me and my 2 brothers as a single mom. My mom was very busy. She worked a full-time job. She went to school. She was taking care of both of my brothers. The brother that stuttered needed a lot of extra attention to heal from his stuttering. And then my other brother was acting out all the time and was demanding attention from my mother. So there wasn't really a whole lot of time or energy left for me. And I very early on kind of learned how to take care of myself. I did not make ruffles or noise in the house because I didn't want to get any negative attention like the attention that my dad was giving to my brothers. When I first started healing from my childhood trauma, I spent time trying to remember and kind of walk through and live through my childhood. And I really struggled to remember times with my mom. And after I thought about it for a while, the only things that I could remember were times that I had injuries. And I could, remember her tending to my injuries. So one time I slammed my toe in a door and had to have my toenail removed, and I burned my hand once. And then anytime I had an injury, of course, I'd get extra attention. And I think that's why I held on to those memories so much, because I would actually get extra attention from my mom. Another thing that I remember about my mom in my childhood is that I would put my arms, when I was a kid, I would put my arms around her waist and just I would put my head down like this and follow her around in the house. And she would say, I have vivid memories of her saying to me, "Oh, Chrissy, do you have to hang on me?" And I think I did this because it was the only way that I was able to get attention. And it's not that she didn't want to give me attention. She just didn't have the ability or the bandwidth to be able to do it. So it probably won't surprise you that I ended up marrying an alcoholic, a very kind of emotionally immature man. When I was in I got together with him in my 20s, and then I didn't actually marry him until I was 30, 31. And so this whole idea that we replace our parents with our first partner or mate really did ring true in my case. And I stayed in that marriage for, I think, 12 years. I had 2 children with my husband, my ex-husband, and ended up leaving that relationship when I was 43. So my girls, one was 4 and one was 7. I'm 55 now, and I've spent the last, 12 years since I left my last marriage healing from my childhood trauma and my adult trauma. And I also have had the good fortune of being in a really healthy romantic relationship. And that has given me an incredibly valuable place to practice in learning, all of the things that I've learned over the last several years in how to kind of rewire my brain and interact in healthy ways and learn how to trust people as a result of, needing to heal from all of my traumas. In addition to the things that I experienced growing up, there's also things that my mother and her mother and my father and his mother have experienced that negatively impacted me. So an example, and that's called epigenetics. My mother had a lot of trauma as a child. My mother lost her father at the age of 12. And then within 2 or 3 years after that, lost her grandmother that lived in the house with her, and she actually disappeared. She took the bus one day to go get shoes in a different city, and she never came home. So my mother grew up with a lot of trauma. So that's an example. If a human being experiences trauma before they bear children, there's a possibility that they will pass on that trauma to their child. That's called epigenetics. And epigenetics, as I understand it, it affects the way our genes are expressed. It doesn't actually affect our DNA, but it can cause changes in how our genes and our DNA is expressed. There's a research study where they exposed mice to the smell of cherry blossoms simultaneously while they were giving the mice an electrical shock. Then the descendants of those mice, that were born, using the sperm of the mice that had been shocked, those mice were exposed to the cherry blossoms, and when they smelled the cherry blossom, they had extreme stress. So that's an example of epigenetics being passed along. Society and culture has also played a big role in my mental health. As a woman, I've experienced, misogyny and suppression. This capitalist culture that does not promote emotional well-being, promotes making money. And these sorts of things can also really take a toll on our mental health. I put together a Venn diagram to show you kind of how all of these contributing factors of your relationships as you're growing up and society and epigenetics can kind of play a role in your mental health. So first layer is my unstable father. Then I had an unstable brother. I had a high needs brother, my overstressed mother, my unstable husband, society and life events that contribute, as well as the epigenetic factors. So if you look at the middle of this Venn diagram, it all seems to get very, very murky. And this is kind of what it's like in your mind. I know a lot of people talk about, peeling back the layers of the onion, but I think of the onion as almost being too structured and too neat and tidy. To me, it's more like this. It's more like a big kind of glob and a mess of confusion. I do embroidery, and I found this in my embroidery kit. And this is what happens if you have kids that also mess with your embroidery floss. But this is what it looks like to me. This is what the kind of complex trauma brain looks like. And for me, my process has been finding one thread in the ball and kind of untangling that one, hey, look, I got it out, and dealing with that. And I dealt with one thread at a time. And I think that's a pretty good way to approach it. So let's talk about what different mental health issues that I did find as pulling out these threads. So the first thread that I found was anxiety. I have had anxiety probably, as long as I can remember. And I think I was very anxious as a child. I had quite a bit of anxiety as an adult. I actually had really, really bad postpartum depression. And that started because of severe anxiety after my second baby. I also had depression, as I said, postpartum depression, but I think other depression just fueled by my chronic trauma as a child. I definitely had PTSD. I want to bring this one up because I think a lot of people feel like they have to suffer some major trauma to have PTSD, and it's just not true. I had PTSD from my life experiences, never having experienced or personally having any physical abuse against me. I still, from witnessing it and just from being in an environment with an unstable adult or unstable brother or unstable husband, being around an unstable person is enough to cause PTSD. And then anxious attachment style. This is from the neglect that I had as a child. I have an anxious attachment style, and it's been really helpful for me to learn about this. And lastly, codependence. It's very typical for people who live in a family where someone has substance abuse issues to have codependence. So how did I get better from these things? Well, probably one of the first things that I did when I would, pull a string out and start to see some things with clarity, I would read. I'd read as much as I could about that thing. And that has been a great way to learn more about each of these individual things. I've also created a resource list that contains information about all of the different things, or most of the different things that I have done to heal my mental health. And I've put together a free guide. You can click the link down below and I will send it to you for free. Of course, please share this video with anyone that you think would benefit from it. Click the thumbs up button. That will help ensure that more people will get to see it. And of course, I would appreciate it if you click the subscribe button. And also leave me a comment down below if this story was familiar to you, or if there's anything that resonated with you. Please let me know in the comments. Thanks so much.